Howdy everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to 6 games I played so you don't have to. These are 6 games that I don't enjoy much at all. It might just be me though, so let me tell you about a bit about each one, and then you can determine if it's something that might be for you. Ogre Sandwich is about the grossest of sandwiches. They're sandwiches with tomatoes and lettuce and cheese and rats. Yeah, okay, that's funny. Kids are going to get into that. This is a stacking game. In fact, on the back it says, Sandwich Stacking Insanity. Let's see how it plays. I got to be honest, I'm probably going to get some rules wrong because this game has so many rules for a stacking game. Now, they have a party game at the end where you're just basically stacking stuff if you want to. And then a basic play, which kind of lowers complexity a bit. But essentially, you have a sandwich piece that you're going to have bread piece on the board. You're going to roll these dice each turn and then look here and see what they say. This says put a frog on your counter. Great. And this says stack 2 different critters. Let's pretend that I started with a couple. Stacking, you just put these critters on your sandwich. Eventually, you're going to roll to let you put an ingredient. So you have to get these ingredients, the lettuce, have fun trying to stack them because if your stuff is, unless your stuff's the same size, they're pretty hard to stack. And then you'll put other things on top. You're eventually trying to stack your pickle if possible, because that gets you an extra point, and then put bread on top. So that's what you're going to do each turn of the game. And you can see that you can stack your critters. You can steal and place an ingredient from someone else's counter. Stack a topping. So topping would be one of the things there. They're all considered ingredients. There's critters, toppings, and ingredients. Put any ingredient on your counter. You have to put them on your counter first. So the yellow one lets you put stuff on your counter, but 4 of them are critters. 1 is anything, and 1 is a topping. So you're going to have a hard time getting those toppings if you don't roll these 2 symbols. And then here you can choose any green die thing. The basic version just tells you to stack stuff on your thing. When someone does finish your sandwich, there is a fairly convoluted scoring. Lose a point for each unused ingredient. Each thing that's fallen over the course of the game, you lose a point for. Tallest sandwich. You're supposed to use the side of the box here to see who has the tallest sandwich. Where's the graphic on the side of the box? Yeah, it's somewhere here. It doesn't matter. You can tell who has the tallest sandwich. Get a point for the pickle. Get a point for each topping that's not laying flat against another topping. A point for each critter standing up. 2 points for a set of toppings. This is a fairly convoluted scoring thing for a stacking game. This game is a bummer because they missed the mark. You saw those rules. What on earth? Why is there so much complexity for a simple stacking game? Literally, they have these little creatures and then different, lettuce and tomatoes. Make that the game. You're done. That's what this game is. They're adding complexity, having people score negative points for their sandwich, and just rolling the dice and needing something and then waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it. It's just a real bummer. I was, the party game's okay, right? Just stacking. It's not like this stuff stacks great anyway. They didn't make it clever. Like, just compare this to other popular dexterity games. So let's say you want to play Animal Upon Animal, which is stacking little wooden things. It's like, it feels clever when you're playing it. This one feels like someone had a funny idea, Ogre Sandwich, and then thought way too much about the game. So I can't really recommend this one. If you want a light stacking game, there's a gazillion of those out there. This one adds way too much complexity, just not worth your time. And it also doesn't stack very well. So 5 out of 10 for Ogre Sandwich. Refuge is a gorgeous game here from Bombix, which has one of my favorite mechanisms, which is bag building, where you have a bunch of tiles in a bag and you pull them out and you can add to it. And a little bit of push your luck. That sounds amazing. This is a win-win, right? In this game, players are trying to get the most points, and they're going to do that by taking trips on a path. Players are going to have a bunch of tiles and a house of their color into a bag here. And what you'll do each round of the game is you're going to pull 2 tiles out of your bag. You'll secretly look at one of them and play it. Here I drew a storm tile. I don't have a choice. I have to play this one over here, because when enough storms have shown up, the round's going to end. So I play this one in front of me. This one is going to give me 2 points. So I'll take the 2 points and then I'll flip it over. It shows an animal token, but that's on the back side too. And at the end of a round, you turn over the top token here. If it's a storm, it gets added to the path. If it's sunny, it gets placed over here. So I pull 2 more tiles from my bag. So I could take 1 footprint, or I could take 3. I'll take this one. I'll place it here. I could take 3 points or 3 traveling points. Now, why do I take these? Because I'm going to use these to buy better tiles. I might spend 5 here, which lets me draw 2 tiles, or I might spend 4 here on this animal one. I'll just buy this one for now, which lets me draw another tile or get 3 more walking points. And then you'll throw that into your bag. Now, at any point, you can, at the end of your turn, decide to go home. If you go home, you run home, and every animal point you walk over, so if I had this one, for example, I would get 5 animal points if I had both of these out there. If the storms hit at the end, before anyone does that, you will not get those points, and in fact, each step that you go over, you will lose a point for each step. And that's how you play. Once you're done, you'll shuffle all these back up. There's extra storm tiles. If this deck runs out, you'll add them, but everyone has 2 of these in their hand. Whenever you walk home, you also can get rid of one of these in front of you. The tiles up here are just some of the tiles that you'll see in the game, but there is a whole lot of different tiles that you can pick between and play and add. And at the end of a certain number of rounds, whoever has the most points on this track is the winner. Oh my word. This game is gorgeous, like I said. I love how it looks, and it's just a terrible thing. It's just luck-based. You will draw, I mean, the game literally has a rule that says if you draw both your storm tiles, that's your turn. What? That's not fair. On turn 1, you can draw both storm tiles, and you do nothing, and someone else draws the 3 hands. They get to buy a tile. They could leave now, and they would be safe, and they would have more than you. If someone buys a better tile early in the game, their chance of getting that tile is very high. But also, you might never draw the tiles you got. And then if you do bust, you lose points. It's so punishing. Every game of this I've seen, the people who won smashingly. And it was embarrassing to see the people behind you just keep getting beat up on. And that's the very opposite of this game. It's like, let's take a refreshing walk. And you walk outside and gallons of water and lightning hits you and a bear mauls you and someone comes up and steals your wallet. And then someone kicks you and they take a picture, you put it in the paper and says, worst person ever. Fun, right? And that's what happens when you lose this game. And it's also a pain to set up with all those different tiles. Beautiful components, and I really do like that. I told you that there's that little house you put in the bag. You pull that house out of the bag when you decide to go back. Great. But to push your luck, you can go from there being no storms to 3 people pulling one, and then you draw one off top, and the storm thing bursts in the next turn. It's not a good game. I want to like this game. Oh, even after saying all that, you look at it and you're like, you might be wrong, Tom. Yeah, but yeah, just too lucky and not very good. It's unfortunate. That's Refuge. For me, it's a 4 out of 10. Nocturne is a game from Flat Out Games, the designers, and AEG, and illustrated by Beth Sobel. So you know there's some big names behind it. These are the people who did Cascadia. These are the people who did Calico and have some upcoming really cool games. And this one looks cool, sounds cool, and this is one I think people will disagree with me on because I don't really like it. Let me show you how to play it. Depending on the number of players, you're going to have a grid here. This is a 3-player game. It would be a 5x5 in a 4-player game. And you're going to be collecting these tiles. We'll talk about scoring first. Each tile, like if I have one of these Tryptifungus mushrooms, 3 points, 2 of them, no points. But if I get 3 of them, 13 points. And there's different things that are going to give you various points. This one, 1 is 0, 2 is 9. This copies another item. Some I want these green ones, I want to have unique items out there. And some items, when you get them, will give you a card. You'll draw some cards. And this says, if I have these 2 symbols on my items at the end of the game, I'll get 2 points. But if I have 4, basically doubled, I'll get 5. Now, how does the game play? The first player will put their lowest token anywhere on the board. And after that, each other player has to place a higher token next to it. Now, this lowest token is only in the first turn. And so let's say everyone else passed, and then pink goes here, green goes here. Each one has to be adjacent to the last bit. And purple says, you know what, green, you can have it. So green wins. They'll take this tile back, turn it down. They can no longer use a 7 for this round, and they're going to win this tile. And actually, we'll leave it here to show that they won it. Green will now start the next bidding, which means they have to go to one of the adjacent spots here. It doesn't have to be their lowest. Maybe they'll put a 5 here. And then purple puts a 6 there. And green then plays this one, which says, I automatically win this tile. So whenever you play your star, you win the tile, but again, it's gone. So now green is playing. I'm showing a 2-player game here just for things. Green might go start here, and purple would go here. Now green goes here, and because purple has nowhere to place one, green automatically wins. And so they get that back. Now, by the way, when you don't win, you'll get your tiles back, although you can send them over to this sideboard. You can send them to this sideboard, but as tiles get sent here, the bigger ones will push the smaller ones off. At the end of a round, each person here, starting from highest down, will get one of these tiles given to them. And once all the tiles are gone, or everyone's passed and doesn't want to play anymore, you can also, you'll look at what tiles you have left over, whoever is the highest ones that weren't used. We'll take these shadow tokens for the second half of the game, where you'll re-put out all the tiles and play another round. After you've done 2 rounds of this, whoever has the most points is the winner. I don't know that I love the concept of the bidding in this one. The bidding where you are bidding higher than the other person, and that's existed since a game called eBay Electronic Talking Game. And I think I don't mind that kind of bidding, where whoever bids the highest loses that and everyone else gets their stuff back. But then putting stuff on the sideboard, I found to be unsatisfying. I found the whole sideboard part to be unsatisfying, but that whole central mechanism where I'm trying to maneuver into a corner, I don't love that anyway. And if I did love it, Skyrise does a much better game. That's from Roxley. Skyrise has this honed down. Nocturne feels messy. It feels overly long. You think out your turn a lot just to have someone else, be like, okay, you put a 5 there. I'm going to put a 7 around it, but which of these 3 sides? You put it here, and then the next person thinks for a while, and then they take that, and now we got to rethink now where we're starting from. And I just found that to be too convoluted to be fun. And it doesn't seem like so, like the scoring of the tiles and all that, but it feels like the scoring of the tiles, which are different. And there's gold tiles, which I didn't mention in the overview, where if you get a certain thing, you put goals there. And there's all this stuff, but it never felt satisfying to me. It just felt dissatisfying, and add it to a time length. It says 30 to 45 minutes here. I think 45 is sometimes the shorter end of it, and I just didn't love it. Like I said, I think others might enjoy it more than me, but this one for me is a 5 out of 10. Landomy is a gorgeously produced 2-player abstract strategy game. Take a look. In this game, you are trying to control the most areas at the end of the game when all the cards have been played, or if at the beginning of your turn you control 2 more than someone else. Real quick issue on the components here. I want to show you these are these white X's that are various heights that you have to snap into place. And then these boards magnetically fit on top of them. And then you have the 2 different color ships. There's also these domes here. There's a deck of maps. 2 of them will be face up on your turn. And you're going to pick one of these maps, and you're going to place it next to any open spot on the board. There's 12 of them at the beginning of the game. That will change. When you point to a map, the 3 white squares that are on the card that you played are showing the 3 squares that you're dealing with. The actions that you're doing will refer to the tile that you're pointing to. So every card's the same way. This one says the active player takes the black action, which is adding a ship. So if I'm the purple player, I'll add a ship here. I'm picking one of these 3 spots. Then the other player picks the white action, so they also add a ship, and they have to pick one of the 2 squares I didn't. Well, they can't add one here because there's a shield, so they add one here, which kills a purple, and those go away. And then the player whose turn it is goes in the last spot, and they just simply add a ship no matter what the actions are. And they can't do that, so nothing happens. Some of the actions are moving these, which will protect you and can also push somebody away to an adjacent spot. Sometimes you can move ships on these up here. And that's the game. Once the card's been laid, the card has been played. And so you'll be slowly playing cards, doing the different actions until you either run out of cards and someone wins, or, like I said, at the beginning of a turn, someone controls 2 more spots. And you use these cubes over here to keep track of who has spots. If there's a tie, whoever controls the center spot wins. Oh my word. Those X's, the magnets, the pieces. It's gorgeous. Well, the map cards aren't, but everything else is gorgeous. For a very tiny game. This game is so small. You play a card down, I take an action, you take an action, I add a ship. That's it. And you do that 7, 8 times, someone finally wins. But they win with a whimper. I'm like, okay, Well, we both go for the center area because we know it breaks ties. So no one controls that. And then I control one over here and then the tiebreaker. It's yawn-inducing. There's like, I know that they thought it was clever. Like, play the card here, and then that activates 3 squares. And I pick one first. Then you pick the second. And then I do the third. And all that sounds clever, but is it fun? That's the point. And I don't think it's fun. I don't think Landomy is that fun. It looks great. The little shields on top. But what are the actions? The actions are add a ship, move the shield, and that's pretty much it. That's the actions? They're like, but the advanced game, you can mix up the... This one is a huge disappointment for me. I don't even know that it's necessarily a bad game, as it is just a very, very, very dull one. And so, I like two-player abstract games. Don't get me wrong. I don't care about the lack of theme. I don't care about any of that, but I want my moves to be interesting. And this one, the game gets less interesting as you play. You're tied to the 2 cards that show up. I just don't like it at all. So 5 out of 10, Landomy. Cube Monster is a game that came with a box that's like 6 times the size of this one. A 3 big dimensional huge board, I guess with some Kickstarter upgrade. And I was like, all right, well, that's unnecessary. It really is. You're moving on a board, and this just makes it a 3-dimensional board. Cube Monster is a game about manipulating cubes so that you can feed a monster. Here's how it plays. In this game, you have a character, and your goal is to get all the way up the mountain. If there's a tie, then you'll break that tie by cubes and cards and things. But you just want to move up the mountain. To move up, you'll need to spend cubes. So to do that, we're going to look at our player board. You're going to start with some free cubes. This is what you use to move up the mountain. But you can also use cubes to build buildings. You can see I have here some factories. You start with some factories. Let's say I want to build a statue. The blue statue here looks like this. It's 2 blues and then 2 of another color, and I'll build that here. You can build a marketplace, a temple, and shrine. A shrine's easy. You just put 2 cubes like that. So there's various things that you can build, but how do you get these blocks? Well, that is done over here. At the beginning of every round, 6 cubes are pulled from the bag. And the person who pulled them from the bag, the feeder, has to take one of these cubes and put it out on this board. If we ever make a row or a column on this board, the monster needs to be fed. Well, that's not going to happen right away, so that's not so bad. Then everybody else is going to take a cube from here, with the feeder taking one last. The leftover cube is put down here in the bottom. If it matches that color, we add another cube up here. When you take cubes, you add them to your area. You can spend cubes to move up the mountain. You can build buildings. If you take a cube of the color and match one of your factories, you get an extra cube from the bag. You can always turn in 3 cubes for 1 of any color you want, although the marketplace lets you turn that into 2. If you do build a statue, you'll get a reward card, and there's different reward cards depending on the color of the statue, and these will give you some special abilities. If you have buildings when you advance up the mountain, you can take one of these cards. So if I have a red factory and a red statue, I get this card, which is basically a cube that I can use once to move up the mountain. But let's say the monster attacks, and they're going to attack because at some point, you're going to keep filling in these spots, and at some point, someone's going to either on purpose or be forced to put a line in. At that point, the monster attacks, and you roll a die, which is going to show a certain number of fingers, 1, 2, or 3. Everyone needs to discard blocks of that many different colors. And if you don't, then you'll draw a disaster card. The feeder reveals a random colored cube from the bag. The monster then destroys 1 structure with that color belonging to each affected player. Players with no such structure must collectively draw another disaster card. And bad things are going to happen to you as you draw these cards. They destroy a factory, or destroys half of your reward cards, things like that. Anyway, that's pretty much the game. Try to climb up these cubes. Sometimes a game just brings out of me a distaste for the game, and that's this one. The biggest one in this one, and the one that makes everyone dislike it, at least that I played with, was that offering board. It's like, okay, so take a cube, put it on that board. Make 4 in a row, you have to feed the monster. People are like, is that bad? Is that good? It's really, if you feed the monster, you might get some cards or whatever, but if you can't feed the monster, it feels like you lost the game. It's so discouraging. And it's all based on rolling a die. This game that's supposed to be strategic has 2 major luck aspects to it. Well, 3. One is pulling the cubes from the bag. I built some factories for blue cubes. I'm ready to build blue cubes. Oh, we didn't draw any. 2, you have the randomness of other players because you don't know what they're going to do. And 3, the randomness of rolling that die. None of the buildings are very clear as to what they do. The game feels really, really slow and plodding. You're probably going to end up in a tie in a lot of games. And you're slowly climbing up this thing by building these 3D cubes. It's not a dexterity game. The shapes of these are just there to help you make a cube thing. And I just found it to be not interesting. It felt like a grind. And I don't even think the game is that long. It doesn't. It says here 25 minutes per player. Well, that's ridiculously long for what the game is. Maybe it is that long. I just the pulling the cubes from the bag and then deciding to feed the monster. Then it's an I split you choose. So each person slowly takes a cube. You take the cube. You decide that you're going to build a building. I can't build a building this turn. Maybe next turn. Still can't build a building. Maybe next turn. Hey, I built a building. Oh, the monster said blow up the building. Now, of course, you can protect yourself against monsters and other things. But then if you do that, you're also not building the fun buildings. So I just found this one to be very, very, very boring. I want to like it more, a 4 out of 10. Theme Park Mania is possibly my disappointment of the year. Now, this is partially on me because I love theme parks. And I want board games about theme parks to be good. But it's also on the company here because this game looks amazing. Everything about this game looks amazing. I love Roller Coaster Tycoon and games like that, Theme Park Mania. You're building out theme parks. So I was very excited about this one. Yeah, spoiler, it's not a very good game. Let's take a look at it and we'll be back. There's a high possibility that I'll get some of the rules wrong in this game because the rule book is pretty bad. You're going to pick how long you want the game to be, and you'll pick a starting board, I think. On your turn, you have various actions that you can do. One of them is you can build paths. So you draw some path tiles, and you'll connect them to open path tiles if you can fit them in. Once per game, you can build your own little path tile here if you need to. But as you build these paths, you are going to get money. That's how you get money, is by building paths, depending on how many players are in the game. You can also build tracks. You have to start with your station, and then after that, you draw a track. Well, that ain't going to fit in there, but hey, I have this little one I can build in there. You have one of those little ones, and after that, you're just connecting tracks to move around the board. You can also build a ride or a facility. So you build the top ride from this pile of rides that you have here. And so I'll draw this ride, Ferris Go Wild or Summer Splash. By the way, I don't love that this board is a top-down board and then you just get a poster of these things. But these are going to need to be next to the paths here. The paths, you're going to need to be able to place them next to a path. And you'll have to pay the cost for the ride to put it out there. It's $4 for the ride. But you also have to put out a facility if you want to, if you have any facilities. And there's going to be a lot of facilities in the game. Some match specific rides. Some are more generic and can go anywhere. And that's another action, is you can build facilities. You can also hire employees. Employees will cost a certain amount of money. You have to hire a mechanic before you can build any rides. You have to hire an operator before anyone can ride any rides. You can also hire a security and mascot. And cards these all cost money to build them, and they're also worth a victory point at the end of the game. Once 4 of these have been built, the park is now open, and now there's a 6th action that you can take, which is playing cards. When you play cards, you're simply going to move the number of spaces. You're going to move your people. They're going to be running here from the beginning. There's going to be buses that come in, and they're going to be running from that's many spaces as you move around the board. So you'll be playing them, moving your people. There are sometimes random cards that will come up. Hey, build a free facility. That's a great card to get. And then here's a malfunction. You can put a malfunction on a ride that doesn't work. And these guys are going to go and get to rides. You're going to try to get to the different rides. If you visit a ride, so let's say this ride is out here, and my meeple comes out here, and I'll go through a ticket booth, because you have to have a ticket booth. When you build a ride, you'll put ticket booths here. My meeple will come into the ride, and they enter the park, and I collect the entrance fee from the bank. So when I put the meeple on the ride, but then I pay the cost of the ride, which is here, to the owner. Now, I don't get it either. I don't understand what the point is, how they're getting money for building rides, but you kind of want to do it to yourself, get on your own rides if at all possible. You can also travel by train if you get on one station to get to the other. You can take loans out from a bank, and then you fill your hand back up to 5. There are so many other things, and I want to point out that I think the rule book looks nice. This looks like a gorgeous rule book, but they mention some things 6 times and other things none. And this is what your park is supposed to look like. It won't, because you get extra points if you completely surround your rides like this. And of course, that requires you drawing the exact paths to make that happen. Was this game play tested? I kind of have to assume that this game was not played with honest gaming playtesters. First of all, that rule book is crazy in how good it looks, and yet it doesn't tell you stuff. It tells you some things 4 times, and other things times it doesn't tell you at all, or it's like on a note somewhere. So that's one problem. Secondly, the tiles and how they come out. You can have just curve and then straight. And I'm like, well, we need this part to come back around so we can build something, and it's going off the table. You know, you can't even control that. The trains are the same thing. And you have to build these tiles to get money. Then there's the employees. So you have to build a mechanic to build a ride. And that's one of the actions you can take is build a mechanic. Everyone has to take that action once per game. Why does that exist? Why does everyone not just start with a mechanic? Like, I have to take one. I have to buy one. So I'll buy a mechanic. What are you going to do? Buy a mechanic. Because it's like one of the first 2 things you have to do, and everyone does it. And then once you have a ride, everyone has to buy an operator. It's not like you have to buy an operator for each ride or a mechanic to keep things running. No, it's a required action. And so that mixed with the randomness of where the roads go, mixed with the randomness of things, and then the game is just really weird and clunky. You have these random cards. It's like roll and move. They just took the roll and move and put it in the cards. And then when I go on your ride, I pay you money, and I get points, and I leave the person on the ride to show that I visited that ride, and the whole thing feels clunky. This is such a... there's nothing I like about the game other than the components are tremendously cool. And the train doesn't work, and it bothers me because they show the pictures and everything looks great in those pictures. I showed you the train goes around the park, and I can move my guy here and over here. But when you just have random negative events happening that may or may not need these people that you may or may not have bought, you want to surround your ride, but that's almost impossible based on the winding paths, and anyone can just mess you over at any time. We were almost like, hey, we should play this game cooperatively because we're feeling so bad about it. It's such a terrible game, and you were about to put a ride there, and guess what? You can't. So disappointing. Theme Park Mania. I'm just sad. I wanted to love this game. When will we get an amazing theme park game? There's some good ones out there, but there's none out there that's like, this is one of the best. There's none in my top 100. I wish there was. But anyway, this is not even anywhere close to that. This is a 3 out of 10, and I think I'm being generous there just because of how nice the whole production looks. Theme Park Mania, I really can't recommend it. Well, there you go, folks. 6 games I played, so you don't have to. Of course, I might be wrong about these. Tell me in the comments if you disagree with me. Or if you do agree with me, tell me that. It's good for people to hear lots of opinions on games. These did not work for me at all, but perhaps they'll work for you. I have my doubts on some of them. But hey, you never know. That's why the world of board gaming is such a wonderful place. There's so many cool ones out there, and there's so many different games for different people. If you enjoyed this review, check us out on thedicetower.com. If you want to sponsor us for a year of content, check out our Game Found project going on right now and support thedicetower.com. Please go in there and help support us so we can do this for another year for you. And of course, we have the top 100 games of all time going on right now, so check that out. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and these are 6 games I played, so you don't have to. Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, you would love to game with us at one of our conventions. Check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Vasel.